No, yeah, no, Bayview is the one that wants to be Serenity.
Actually, that was one of the names I thought of when I was driving down the
Did you?
road.
And they said they have a bench in like a little circle that they call Serenity Place.
Yep.
Hello, sir. You getting ready to get back to work?
Yeah, tomorrow I have some,
tomorrow?
Unless someone came.
got some,
Documentary stuff.
retained bills.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. So tomorrow.
All right.
How long is that going for?
I think it's 8 or 10 episodes. I'm not sure.
Have to look up and around and see if everybody was still here.
I know, it's like crazy, right?
Okay, 6:30 PM on September 5th, I'll bring the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, starting with a roll call from my right.
Paul Sanderson.
Chester Gerardi.
Ron Morgan,
Jim Ralston. Chip Uzzy.
and we have a quorum, and the meeting is being recorded. First order of business is accounts payable manifests. And I will entertain motions to,
I just gotta bring something up, and I can't mention names till we develop
you
it.
can't what?
Can't mention names till we go to a closed door, but I'm noticing timesheets aren't bounding what I'm starting to see in the world. I got a person that saying he's starting at 5:30 and at 6:30 he's down to subs and soda. That ain't right.
Okay,
We don't pay employees for breakfast.
okay, well, then if you want to,
I will talk to them, I just don't want them coming around, because I know they'll come see you, Vaughn, as soon as I do it, so.
yeah,
But he really shouldn't be starting if he's gonna be mowing lawns till 7.
okay,
Especially this time of year, it's cooling down. Just I'm sure we're gonna get complaints if he does. Windows will be opening back up, air conditioners get shut off. So, but, yeah, I'll make a motion. We hereby approve the attached payroll number 18, paid date September 7th, 2017, period August 21st, 2017, and including December 3rd, 2017, amount excluding payroll liabilities, $57,006.12.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I have manifest number 10, accounts payable for the Police Special Revenue Fund in the amount of $15,392.60. Move to approve.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes.
I have manifest number 8, for the Fire and Safety Revolving Fund in the amount of $61.90. Move we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
I have the General Fund accounts payable number 18 in the amount of $439,156.23, of which $335,000 is a transfer to the school. Move we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
It's a $12,000 purchase for a plow and sander. That didn't go out to bid, I want to know why.
Okay, where is it in here? Let's find
Yeah.
it. Who?
And I'll tell you why I'm questioning it. This is the second,
Just who was the vendor? We'll get the
REP.
REP?
it's near the back.
Okay.
That makes it easier. It's usually the last one I look at. I don't care if it's supposed to be alphabetical.
Okay, it is REP on August 31st in the amount of $12,231.03. Okay. And it consisted of a 9.2-foot V-blade, a plow box, a control kit, the necessary controllers and modifications that have to go because it was a Chevy, a quart of Boss plow fluid, shop labor to install it, a snow deflector, and shop labor to install it, and a V-box spreader in the amount of $5,795. Total $12,231.03.
I'd like to know why it wasn't put out to bid.
Okay, and you believe that violated our general policy at 10,000?
I think it violated only because he didn't come and ask if he could waive it from the Board of Selectmen. The truck was bought the same way. No bid.
Well, remember there was a warrant article.
I don't care.
No.
I mean, right up front.
I just discussed with the budget committee ahead of time.
I want to know, because I'm going to be expected to represent the town at the budget committee, and if they ask me the things going out to bid, I have to tell them no.
Well, at times, right. This one apparently did not, and I can't answer.
I just was aware of it today.
And I do remember that it was discussed, but I can't remember the details on it either. So let's check with Paul on that and see if he can come up with the details on that. I just don't remember what the details were. I think it was the only truck available.
Right, I remember when we bought the
I
truck,
can't
right.
remember the details.
I guess it's not clean, and that's beginning the bottom.
Well, I think this one, I think it was clean, but I just don't remember.
There's nothing in the minutes. In other words, there was no motion to waive the bidding process
So,
and justification for that.
let's ask Paul to come up with an explanation for that.
But I just don't want to see any more of it. I've said my piece here, I just don't want to see any more of it. Because it's, you got that much money, you gotta have a real damn good reason not to put it up the bid.
Okay.
Okay,
I agree.
all right. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Have we actually taken
We
a
haven't
vote?
voted yet, no.
Okay.
Oh, we haven't.
We do have a motion to approve in the amount that was requested of 439, 156.23.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Does that take care of all the manifests?
Yes.
Okay.
No, send them back because they're not all completely signed.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 21st. Everybody had a chance to read them? And are there any amendments that you would like to make, corrections? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 21st.
I'll move to approve the minutes of Monday, August 21st, 2017, as written, amended, as written.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, old business, a Coakley update?
The only update that I have from the past 2 weeks is that Chinburg Development has recorded their declaration of restriction regarding no water, no wells to be installed on any of those lots. The planning board had required that it be a deed restriction. So the deeds are going to be written with that restriction in place. But Chinburg has also filed an additional understanding of the restriction, that it applies to all the lots, that one of the wells on lot whatever would be used for monitoring, and that under no circumstances could that deed waiver, the deed restriction be waived.
Okay.
So it's just an extra level of protection, which is one of the things one of the residents was concerned is like, well, if somebody doesn't do it, or one sells it and they don't put it in the deed, how do we protect that?
Okay,
And this is a blanket restriction.
all right. Paul, anything from your
The
side?
first meeting of the MTBE committee is Thursday. If that's their organizational meeting, and I'll be there. The first meeting of the Drinking Water Commission is tomorrow, and I'll be there.
Okay. Good. Any other comments on Coakley update?
I have a question. Where are they getting their water if they're not gonna drill any wells?
That development is getting it through RIDE.
Okay, thank you.
The water line currently services Bethany Church.
Mhm.
It's being continued back in front of Bethany, in the back of Bethany Church, back of the town, in between the town property
Oh,
to
yeah.
that subdivision.
Right, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Okay, window bids.
The board had requested the warranty information from Paul regarding the two bids because they were both at the same amount of money at the $3,700. No, one was $3,341 and next door window was $3,700. And so we have both of the warranties there. The Anderson warranty, and actually I just got these from him, so I haven't really transferable, applicable law.
Has anybody had a chance to read these warranties?
Right.
Huh?
I looked at them.
Did you? Did you have
Are they
any
both
comments?
basically the same?
One says a lifetime limited, I know the other one is a limited. You know, I'm not big on warranties, so
Yeah.
On commercial, it's all exempt.
Right, and you're right, they both explain, exempt the acts of God, wear and tear, glass shading devices, glass tinting,
Does Paul have a preference as to, no comment on that?
exact.
I'll say, I have a preference towards the Anderson because I know they're a decent window.
Yeah,
And I also know they've gotten really strict on guys installing them.
Yeah,
You just can't pick them up.
Yeah.
If you're a contractor, you gotta sit in and get bored to death with that glass.
yeah. So $350 difference, I would tend to agree. Anderson's just got a really good name.
Yeah,
Not
I
like there's a
agree.
big difference.
I agree.
I agree because parts in the future.
Mhm.
The moving parts will wear out. Anderson's likely to be available. This other one, who knows?
Right. I think it's $350 well spent to go with the Anderson in next door.
Right, and that was one of the points I was gonna make, is that Home Depot is located in Greenland, but it's a box store that's
Right.
nationwide. Nick's Store and Window is a local business.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move toward the replacement windows of the town clerk's end of the building to Nick's Doors and Windows in the amount of $3,700.
Second.
Second, I have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other old business that anybody wants to bring up?
Just one thing, and I should have caught up when we were doing the town administrator's report, but I took a ride down.
We haven't done it yet.
Oh,
You didn't miss it.
That's good.
well, let me spit it out
Go
now,
ahead.
since everybody's got their rapt attention tonight.
You did.
I took a ride down Coastal Way, and I wasn't really super impressed. Now, maybe it had been down for 3 or 4 days, but to me, it didn't look like it did anything. But I haven't been down recently.
Right, well, they haven't vacuumed the sand back up yet.
Yeah, but I could see a lot of holes and such and
Oh.
cracks that it's still there. I didn't get out and
Right,
sweep
yeah,
it.
when I went down, it just
away,
was
but-
very, very sandy, because we had gotten we had gotten 3 calls that I had gotten anyway, I don't know if Paul got more, but we got 3 calls about people that there's so much sand and it's getting in our cars and it's a mess and I'm like, ooh.
It just didn't, to
It
me,
didn't look like they did a thorough job with it.
well, it didn't look to me like I was all that impressed.
Chip, have you?
I drove by, to me it just looked like a mess. I thought they actually needed to put more sand down. They were actually supposed to, but I know they didn't.
Okay, would you get together with Paul on that? And
Yeah,
go
we do.
over and recheck that and
Right, because we won't know, until the sand is all swept up, we won't know how it really came out.
Ain't gonna get swept up.
Because
I mean,
it's a
there are
whole
holes in
new
it.
process, right,
there are holes in it though.
Yeah,
That's pretty evident.
when we approved it, it was,
it's a trial.
it was said that it was going to,
Rejuvenate.
yeah, I thought it
Rejuvenate,
said like
like
paving,
Yeah.
that it would be like paving
Right,
someplace.
that it was like, it's supposed to be crack sealing, but goes over the entire
Yeah,
road.
well,
Okay, well, let's just keep an eye on it.
Yeah. See when it's down what it looks like.
Right,
'Cause that's all I could, when I looked at it, it looked like a gooey mess. And I asked Paul about, they're gonna put some more sand on it, and they were supposed to, but to my knowledge, they never came back and did it.
Okay, all right, we'll keep an eye on that. Actually bring it up at the next meeting, I think.
okay, and I'll ask Paul for follow-up.
Mhm. Any other old business? Anybody?
I have one thing that had come through that Tara had talked to you on for waiving the bid requirements for the lift, to get the lift up to code
Mhm.
as a sole source.
Yeah, she had mentioned that because the inspectors actually recommended this person, and apparently it's the only person around that can do it anyway.
Right.
So rather than go through the bid process, she wanted to waive it, so I don't see the problem with that.
No, I don't either. It's like a $9,000 or might be more than that. But if the board wants to take official action, she's requested it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Can you give us details on it?
Let's see, I need to request a waiver for our normal bid process to proceed as a single vendor availability. Luan is aware of it. I just don't want to wait around if this project can actually proceed. She's here, so let me ask her.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about waiving your elevator thing? I don't have enough of the answers to the questions.
Hello, how are you? Good evening. I'm sorry, I've got candy in my mouth. I wasn't expecting to speak.
Okay, jump into the guitar.
Yeah, basically, we wanted to move forward with correcting the lift to bring it up to state code. And so the state had come out and given me a list of people that deal elevators in the state and said, call a couple of them, get some, they'll come in and tell you what you need. Both Troy Thibodeau and I called a bunch of them, never received a return phone call. So the state had come back 2 weeks later, and I said, I can't get any of them to call me back. And they said, probably because it's not you're not buying an elevator from them and asking for an install. It's just to check on what things are missing and to fix that. So he gave me the name and a number of a certain company, Accessibility Standards, out of Stratford, and said, call them, tell them that I told you to call them. So we did, and he came out, worked with the state. He came out a second time at the same time as the state, and they talked. So now we're ready to move forward. They have an accepted plan and all these things. But I don't want to, I can't get 2 other quotes because people won't call me back and people won't come out. We had originally called, I think, 6 different companies, Concord and Laconia and, everywhere.
This has been a year.
Yes, this has been a year-long process of talking to the state and then trying to find someone and then having them review what needs to change.
What is the amount involved?
I believe it's $9,100,
Okay.
which I have in my budget for this. But,
But it's actually below the 10,000.
It's below the 10,000, but at the same time.
But at the same time, I'm gonna have to pay Troy to do some changes, so that, that part of the bill won't be over, but Troy, the whole project, it will be over probably 12,000.
Okay, all right,
So I'm asking, I guess, for an exception for single source.
okay. Any other comments?
No.
You want to make a motion?
Move that we waive the bidding requirements to allow a contract to be let to Accessibility Standards
Out of Stratford.
out of Stratford, New Hampshire, for the purpose of bringing our lift at the police station up to code requirements.
Not to exceed,
Do you want just their amount
well, what do you think is the most it's going to be?
for both people or just
Yeah,
for?
both people.
It definitely wouldn't be over 15,000 because I don't have money over 15,000.
Okay. But you think it's going to be about 12?
I'm thinking 12.
Okay. So not to exceed 15,000,
Okay.
okay?
Great.
All right, I have a
Second.
motion, do I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
do have a question though.
Yes.
So has the second floor been used at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we use it for training. We've used it, we've actually had the fire department come over and do some of their training, but we've also had outside classes come in. We've made a connection with Taser International, and they've come and they said that they'd like to come every year for recertification of Taser instructors. The good thing about that was we got 2 free seats in that class because we hosted, so both of our Taser instructors went through for free. So we have monthly detectives meetings there. Every month we have the SWAT team CERT meeting for the directors, the chiefs there. We've used it a lot. It's wonderful.
And is the gym being used?
The gym isn't being used a lot because our equipment, I've been trying to work with Planet Fitness to get some different equipment. One treadmill broke or isn't working properly. So it's used, but it's not really used
Okay.
as much as it could be. We have this big machine for weights, but we don't have the actual weights that go on it, so kind of defeats the purpose there.
You want
So-
to sit next to Leo.
That is more of a, it's more of a budget thing, or just trying to get things donated. You know what I mean? Because we've wanted to have.
He wants to sit next to you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. We've never spent any PD money on equipment, so I prefer to keep that as a, you know, a donation type of thing. There's always people that are getting rid of engines and things like that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments? Okay, is there any other old business that you would like to bring up? Okay, new business. I'll bring one thing up. Chip, you were talking about the fire station roof.
Yes.
What's going on with that? What do you,
Well, when I basically tasked Paul with getting some budget figures out of a couple contractors, just budget figures for the repair, so we have an idea what we're dealing with. Also, I have Jim going through taking the plans, going to see if it was built as the plan stated, and if there are no deficiencies in. If we have no deficiencies, then we're way ahead of it.
okay,
If we do have deficiencies, then we got a big problem.
okay, so you have Jim going through the
The
original plan?
the original plans with what's there. It's
And
real
what is he
simple.
supposed to determine?
Look for any signs of, the thing wasn't built the way it was supposed to be. One thing with metal buildings, you get your collapses are caused by not putting all the bolts in.
Okay.
Stupid stuff like that.
He's able to do that?
Yeah, he had no problem, he felt very capable of doing that. And he'll be looking for, structural cracks in the IDs, that type of thing. We did have one that got repaired, so we just wanna make sure that we got nothing that's gonna bite
I
us
know,
if
but
we
she couldn't afford
move
it.
forward on repairs to the building.
But,
Okay.
no, that would.
Were we having a structural engineer?
Not yet.
She should do it
I'm
now.
kind of right now, just running it through, and if he sees something, then we decide how to take it there. Finds out some wells that may be bad or something in the I-beam, we would have to bring a structural person in to see if that kills something, or it's repairable.
Okay. If we do have to bring a structural engineer in, I think it's a good idea to probably look at, the building Jim Jones is in. I mean, he's gonna do one building. You know how it is.
That's a disaster, in my personal opinion, because I think that some of the beams are knocked right out, so.
That's all.
All right, okay, then we'll just wait on that.
Yeah.
Town administrators report. Any questions? I know we got the budget coming up. I guess everybody's submitting their budget by September 15th? Okay.
And we worked with the chairman of the budget committee today to set up his schedule for the budget committee.
Okay. We're over Coastal Way. You know, we all have a retirement get-together for Carol Smith on Friday. It'd be nice if anybody could make it, make it a little. And that starts at what time?
It's
12.
between 12 and 3, like an
Oh.
open house.
Okay.
I'll be there.
All right.
I got one question, how's the positive pay work, because that was one of the things Tina recommended.
Yep, this will be the first manifest that will actually go through the process. I worked with the Provident Bank and Tina with the manifest from 2 weeks ago, and we did it as a test file. It went through without a problem whatsoever.
So accounting isn't doing this?
Not as yet. She was
She understands that's her job.
right, but she
Okay.
wasn't available for the training on a Friday.
That's right, too, she does, this here on.
Right, so we're just gonna coordinate the training and then make that switch. But at this point, it was just as easy to get it started until she's available.
Okay. Longevity policy amendment.
This is an amendment that is just a clarification. The past 2 years that we've had the longevity policy, it's been given to full-time and part-time employees that are regularly scheduled. A question came up last year about our part-time policemen that aren't regularly scheduled, because we had one that would qualify. So it was not given. And so that now we just need to clarify that it's part-time employees that are regularly scheduled. The transfer station people do get it. Nobody qualifies up there right now. Walter was the only one that had qualified before. But he was regularly scheduled for these 2 days a week, every week. If we open it up to all part-time employees, which the board has every right to do, it then opens it up to the part-time police officers that aren't regularly scheduled and all of the firefighters who aren't regularly scheduled. Because they are technically part-time employees.
Right. I think the amendment makes sense to me, anyway.
We just need to be clear one way or the
I have a
other.
couple questions. How many hours do they have to work to get the longevity? Because if you know, a full-time employee is generally gonna be 40 hours.
Correct. This is part-time, right now the way it had been in place was part-time, regularly scheduled. So the transfer station people are scheduled for 18 hours a week.
So they get the full amount of longevity?
They do. Nobody qualifies anymore there, but yes.
Well, I just have a little problem with that, to be honest. Giving somebody $1,000, and only working 2 days a week, we've got people working 40 hours a week. They the same amount.
Well, if you have any suggestions.
I don't.
You know, let's, you know.
What are other towns doing with their longevity?
Some towns it's for full-time employees only, not part-time employees.
I don't have a problem giving it, I just, the full, because like a police
Right.
officer, you don't have to send them away to get trained, and that makes it easier, but as I said, they're working 4 hours a week, and then the same longevity as somebody working 40, I have a problem with that.
Right, well, they're working 18 a week.
Well, that's still a lot less than 40.
Right, it's still less than 40. So it's totally up to the board, full-time only, full-time. Our part-timers, we have 34 and 35-hour part-time employees, and then 18-hour part-time
And then we got the
employees.
fire department too, was it gonna stop when they were volunteers or they were town employees then?
Correct. But they're not regularly scheduled at this point. They're a per diem, pick up a shift, the same way with part-time police. They pick up a shift when they work and work detail. So it's totally up to the board.
How about if the part-time people got half the, what the full-time people? I think that would be fair.
And just all of them, but not regularly
No,
scheduled.
all regularly scheduled.
Okay.
I have to concur with you, that's too vague right now. We need
Right.
to spell it out in more detail,
Right, and that's what our attempt is to do right here.
and I don't think it's there yet.
Okay?
And we have to also make a decision whether it should be prorated if they're, you know, full-time versus, you know, if they're part-time working, less, half-time or less. Do you want to prorate it down first? So if you think it's a good idea to do it, you know,
I think it has some merit. I also was looking, I was surprised it started at 10 years, because a lot of companies will start doing that at 5. Especially their managers and stuff around it.
Yeah. And that was a board decision. It was initially proposed as 5 at a smaller amount.
Yes,
And the board at that time wanted to start it at 10 with a higher amount.
but again, we've made no decision whether or not we should prorate based upon, you know, the amount of time they work each week.
Right.
And I have no idea what regularly scheduled means.
40 hours. Oh, regularly scheduled is that they work the same Tuesday, Wednesday every week.
But of course, it doesn't say that.
Regularly,
No, what I mean is,
Scheduled.
2 years out, no one will know what regularly scheduled means.
okay,
We just need to get more detail to say exactly what we mean.
okay.
Okay, so let's table this for a future meeting.
Next meeting,
All
right, because
and-
December's coming and so we need to like,
Exactly, right, so we need to work with it. So
okay.
table that to the next
Thank you.
meeting and we'll clarify it. All right, is there any other new business? Just to let you know, I will not be here at the next meeting. I'm going on vacation whether you like it or not. Haven't had one in 2 years. So I just wanted to bring that up. Jim will take over.
aren't you lucky?
All right, Bryce, I'll let you do it.
Is Is there any other new business anybody would like to bring up? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the second public hearing of the enhanced 9/11 street name and number changes. This hearing is for the purpose of renaming Bay Shore Drive, Fairview Drive, and Bayview Drive due to the confusing similarity in their names, which will allow emergency. Am I disturbing somebody out there? Please. Which will allow the emergency workers to respond in a more quick manner. Before I open the public hearing, I would like to mention an email sent Wednesday, August 30th to the board from Ms. Judy Alex of Bay Shore Drive and co-signed by 14 residential addresses located on or adjacent to that street. The email requests that the board delay and/or reconsider its decision to implement enhanced 9/11 road name changes and number changes proposed at the last hearing. It then went on to list 14 questions concerning New Hampshire's dispatching methodology and street name and number changes. I would like to make a note here that the administration of the New Hampshire dispatching does not come under the purview of the town of Greenland, or for that matter, any other town, city in the state of New Hampshire. If anyone has issues with that, they need to contact their state representatives. We cannot make changes to the way it is handled or administered. But the Greenland 9/11 Commission still did try to answer the questions that were presented to us. Let me assure you that your concerns did not fall on deaf ears. I met last Friday with Chief Laurent to go over the email and asked her if she would convene a meeting with the Enhanced 9/11 Committee to respond to the email, answer the questions, and submit some factual documentation supporting this and previous board's decisions to implement these changes. They spent the entire day on this. The response was sent back to Ms. Alex at approximately 8 p.m. Friday evening, along with the supporting documents. In the interest of saving time, I will not go into the details here, but will make copies of this response available to any interested parties, and in the interest of transparency, will request that it be made part of the minutes of this meeting. That being said, I, for one, am not in favor, nor do I see any reason to reconsider or delay moving forward with the proposed enhanced 9/11 changes, because I still believe that safety outweighs the inconvenience. And I will ask the rest of the board if they have any comments before opening the hearing. Okay, none being heard. Keeping in mind that this hearing is about the renaming of streets, I will open the public hearing to address any proposed street name changes from the public. Go ahead.
I propose Shore,
Could you state your
I'm
name?
sorry, Juan
That's all right.
Gillette, Bay Shore Drive. I propose Shore Drive because when I Googled it, it brought me to Bay Shore, you know. So I thought, and there's not a lot of other shore drives in our area at all,
Okay,
so.
let me refer, does that Shore Drive fall within the,
Absolutely. All of the names that were sent to me look good, and they're actually very, very nice names, so well done.
okay, all right,
No conflict.
okay. I like the name too, I think it's a good idea. Well, then I will ask for a motion to,
Well, I guess while we're still here, does anyone in the public have comments about the numbering?
No, don't change the numbers.
Okay.
Yes, and I think, Tina Rockefeller, 6 Bay Shore, I hope you got my email, Karen, and I think there was some discussion before that, I think maybe Mr. Hussey had commented that you believe Bay Shore had been built out already, so.
Let me clarify this, because I sat down, waiting for dinner. When this first came up, I went through and I've actually driven all the roads 3 times, twice before the first public hearing and once afterwards, just to make sure. Road names have got to change, that's for sure, that's a given. It has caused confusion. I've driven fire truck and ambulance for 40 years, so it does present us with some problems once in a while in the heat of the moment. But the numbering on this particular case doesn't seem to be that gross where I would want to change it. I know 911 has a criteria to follow, it's very good, especially when numbering is loose. Because it really does, it really helps to straighten that out. But current zoning will not allow any more construction in any of the roads affected. And I just don't see why we should add any more stress to the residents by renumbering, changing their numbers in Preston Ave. Any other comments?
Well, I had a comment again. I think I hear what you said, which is you opened this hearing for the purpose of discussing the name and numbering. What I would just ask is, was there any hearing or any public input on the original decision-making? Or I don't remember getting any notice that that issue would be discussed and public would have an opportunity for input, so.
Okay. We're in actually our 7th phase of this, all right? So this has been going on for, what, 2.5 years now, all right? In the beginning, every meeting we've had and every hearing we've had has been public. We actually are not required to have a public hearing on changing street names, only on numbers. So, but to try to be transparent about the whole thing, we not only had one, but we've had 2 hearings. One basically to explain to the residents what they have to do as far as changes go to their licenses, their deeds, their mortgages, and things like that. The selectmen are responsible, and the town can be liable if we see a danger that's proposed to us and we don't act on it. We don't like to change our names, believe me, we love to sit back here, throw our hands up and go, fine, we won't change a thing. But if we didn't, the town could be held liable. There are cases where that's happened. But to answer your question, yes, we've had public, all of our meetings and hearings have been public. Open to the public, minutes have been, out on the, telecast, or not telecast, but broadcast.
Yeah, they're available to listen to.
Yeah. So, we've been transparent about this and public about this. And when we send a letter out, the first letter we send out definitely does explain what we're doing and that the selectmen have made the decision to do it, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I got the letter and thank you, and I do understand that your perception is that there's a safety issue, and I appreciate that. But my question, I think, was, I don't believe that we, the people that were directly affected by this change, ever had an opportunity to be heard. I mean, there were 2 hearings, I was at the first one, but it wasn't, the decision was announced, so it wasn't a hearing with any public input. And I think you have a choice, you could have public input and you could do it in a variety of manners, including at a town special meeting or anything like that. And so I guess, just as a citizen, again, I appreciate your work, but it would seem that affecting so many different people that it might be appropriate to have citizens have input before there's a decision making.
And I understand where you're coming from. The first hearing we had on this,
2 weeks ago?
honest to God, no,
2 years ago.
2.5 years ago. First hearing we had on this, we learned a lot, okay? Because we could have ordered in breakfast the next morning. Because you have people who are pro and con, the whole thing. And the conversation went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And yet the board had already made the decision that the change was going to be made.
Right, and
So
I think I can clarify what Tina's saying is that when the board met prior to the very first session, when we had the presentation by 911 about going to the standardization, when the board discussed it for a couple of meetings and then voted to say, yes, we will go through this process. That wasn't done as a public hearing, but it was done as a public meeting when we got the list of, these are your problems. And the board at that time, a couple years ago, voted then, okay, yes, we'll go this 911 process.
Well, we didn't
Right,
get
but that's a
whisper of
different
this till 2
decision.
weeks ago.
That the
It
decision
was
to
in the
go with the
paper and
enhanced
all that.
is different than the
I'm
decision
not writing
to
a letter.
change 3 street names. They're separate decisions.
Mhm.
And then I want to, and probably Mr. Sanderson is probably the most knowledgeable in this area in the room, but I don't believe there's any cases that say there's liability for this decision. And
Yes, there are.
in
There
what,
are some cases. Do you have that?
Actually, we can give you some, it's actually a Superior Court decision.
I saw that, but
Yeah, and it-
I think the issue is, I mean, the standard is there's municipal immunity here.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you have to find an exception, and, I mean,
Let's say that you're absolutely right. There are no New Hampshire Supreme Court cases saying this. However, I think what we're trying to do is, as a board and in this process, trying to support the effort to avoid the danger to our first responders and the danger to our citizens. So we're erring on that side of caution. And I do think it's an overstatement to say that we have potentially immediate or automatic liability. That's too strong. There is a risk, always, that immunity won't be upheld in a case, as happened in the Jaffrey case that you were reading about there. Jaffrey or Swansea, I forget which one. But still, I have to concur that this is a prudent thing to do to remove that confusion and to help our first responders. Because as time goes forward, we've had for a long time the luxury of having volunteers here who live in town. That is ending. That our first responders won't be people who live here. And so therefore, we have to err on that side of caution and move forward to make it easier for them.
and I think we all agree that safety is really important, but I think I heard that the issue, that there were some anecdotal examples of some confusion that were human error. And I think I would have, again, go back to the same thing, it would be nice to have a discussion about whether the solution actually will solve the problem identified.
Well, that's true, and it would be helpful that people did understand how dispatch worked. And that we don't dispatch our own calls, and nor will we, ever, just by the nature of it. I think there's a misconception in town that there's someone sitting in the building over here dispatching police and fire to particular emergency situations, and that's just not the case. That dispatcher is in Brentwood, and will continue to be.
Right, so how does going from Bay Shore to shore address the problem that was identified?
Hopefully by taking out the multiple uses of the word bay, that either the dispatchers or the responders will, that opportunity for confusion is reduced.
Go ahead.
Ron Burlett, 17 Bay Shore Drive. Who's to say that after we change all these street names, and you guys have all talked about, and I'm really thankful you guys work as hard as you do, because I know you guys put in a lot of time on this. But who's to say January 1st, there's a call that comes out on Shore Drive and nobody knows where Shore Drive is, Stratham, Portsmouth, Newington, they'll know, but it's not gonna be on any maps, it's not gonna be a GPS. Who's to say there's not more danger one time, just one time, when you change all these names, they have to be somewhere, the names are all different, it's not gonna be on the books, it's not gonna be in it's not gonna happen, not immediately, it'll happen, it might take a year, as you guys have, discussed with us the last time, but I would think that the risk of changing all these names, as you guys have, I'm sure, discussed, would be more dangerous to those citizens on these streets than the way it is right now. I mean, in Bay Shore Drive, that we've had literally no incidences that I'm aware of, outside of one that was discussed this last time, Bay Shore Drive, and to take all the bays and change them because there's maybe an incident on one bay, I don't know, I just think there's gonna be a lot of confusion, I would think, from the dispatchers and the fire and the police and people that have to memorize all these new names and the addresses. And if some of the streets are renumbered, my God, what a mess I would think that's going to create.
And I think the best answer to your question is for us to ask our first responders, since this is the 7th round. You've had 6 previous rounds.
It's actually 8.
8, okay. Can you tell us anecdotally about the other places where these changes have been made and whether his concern actually occurred?
we haven't had that issue. Even though 911 can't put it out for Google to pick up until the day of the change, that doesn't stop us from putting it in advance. So when we pass something like this, we allow 90 days, 120 days for people before the change happens. During that time, my officers have to get familiarized, and the fire officers have to get familiarized with the new streets. So there's no change that happens that we're not aware of or don't have months of training on that. As far as the mutual aid places, they don't know where Bay Shore is anyway. So if the dispatch is saying go to Shore Drive, it's going to be the same,
Not if it's not in their maps, it's not gonna be the same, they're not gonna find it.
But when I say that we can put it in our system, that's for Rockingham Dispatch. So that's everybody they dispatch for, which is gonna be everybody around here.
So what's causing the confusion now? If it's dispatch and they can all get it, where's the confusion now?
Because the repetitive words of bay or fair.
I hear that, I just don't see where it seems like it's been that big of an issue, outside of one or two things.
You say one or two things, but just one time.
Yeah,
If
but
it gets us there faster.
you're inconveniencing thousands of people for something that maybe will happen. You can change the town of Greenland's name, because I Googled it, and it sent me to Nook, Greenland. Okay, well, you can change the name of Greenland. Is that ever gonna come down to that? Probably not. Maybe I'm being facetious, but I just don't understand. We have such small incidences that may happen.
It's
That all of a sudden,
It's small incidences, but it matters a great amount to the one person that's going through it. And when it's life or death, because we're not the Postal Service. It's not like you're not gonna get your letter. It's gonna be life or death if that one, in that one chance.
But that next day when they change our street name, and someone from Stratham's gotta be at Shore Drive, and they're thinking, what the hell is Shore Drive?
They would be thinking, where the hell is Bay Shore Drive? You think Stratham people, other than the people that have lived there their whole life, know where Bay Shore Drive in Greenland is? Most people don't know that. And the point that Paul made about the people that don't live here, myself and not one of my officers live in Greenland. Not because it's not a great community, it's because we can't afford it.
Right.
However, we work here 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week plus, and that's how you get to know the roads and stuff.
Right.
People who do not do that, like a Stratham officer, of course, they're not gonna know much of it all, other than what everyone knows, 95, 33, maybe a couple of the roads. But take into consideration that this research has been done since the 60s. These standards didn't come because someone thought, oh, maybe this will work or maybe that'll work. It came from time after time after time, and they have proven empirically through standardization that these things improve response time. So if we came up with this, I would understand you're attacking me. I don't have any empirical evidence. I don't have piles of things.
I'm not trying to attack.
No, but you know what I mean.
Being inquisitive.
If you were saying I don't believe in that logic, completely get that. But this is NENA is this huge organization of 911 since the 60s. And then underneath that, you have our state 911 professionals that have standardizations, and they all come from empirical data, because otherwise, we wouldn't be asking to make these changes. If they weren't proven, I wouldn't recommend them.
They should have done them in the 80s, and when they were naming all these streets.
They should have done them in the 60s when they first started making these changes.
Why now, after the inconvenience is gonna be massive for hundreds, as you guys all know, I'm not telling you anything new.
Well, for an example, the people that live in Greenland, if I said, go to 100 Portsmouth Ave, everybody says, my officers, everybody that lives here, is that the 33 Portsmouth Ave, is that Town Hall Portsmouth Ave, or is that Southern Soda Portsmouth Ave? And the reason that came to be is because 101 used to be here, and Portsmouth Ave was just the other route other than 101. And just over time, all these things change, and instead of addressing it right then, now we're left with, oh my God, which part's Portsmouth Ave?
Right, and that's on the list.
Oh, yeah.
There'll only be one Portsmouth Ave when we're done. We're already town square.
Go ahead, would you like?
Yes, hi, Justina Hudson, 23 Bayshore Drive. And I missed the last meeting. I was out of the country and I literally just landed an hour ago. So I apologize for not having, I apologize for not being completely up to speed. But I've been on Bayshore since 2003. And when you're saying 7 and 8 meetings, I believe that has happened, but as a resident, I never received a letter, about those until the neighborhood started talking a couple of weeks ago, and that was the one meeting that I couldn't make. So, yeah, it may I'm sure it happened, but as a resident, it would have been nice to get a letter saying, hey, we're having a meeting that is directly affecting you. And I'm glad you used the word standardization, because I was going to ask you about that. So you're saying standardization. So with the job that I do, there's standardization. What's the SOP, the standard operating procedure, for when someone gets dispatched to a multiple bay road? I mean, can't you just say Bayshore, I say again, Bayshore, like repeat it, or like something to avoid the confusion? Because I don't know, I guess I don't do that job, but it just seems like it's not that hard if that's the profession that you're in, and you have to kind of know the streets. I don't get why it's so hard.
Well, and people keep thinking that, and there's nothing I can really say to make you know what it's like.
Right.
We do try and do those things. Bayshore, is that the first one, and you try and go back and forth with dispatch or someone else on duty. But what you have to understand is when we're responding to a burglary in progress, what I'm thinking is there any weapons involved? Who is in the house? Are there any children? Is there anybody else that's calling about this? Have you seen any vehicles there? All the things I'm thinking of are things that I have to do to keep the residents and the house safe as soon as I get there, and myself. So I'm thinking, how many people do I need to call for backup? Do I need to have an ambulance stand by? I mean, and this is while I'm going, 25 miles an hour over the speed limit with my sirens and my lights. So yes, they say Bayshore. Yes, I may even repeat Bayshore, but I may drive to Bay Ridge. And it's not just me. That is, again, something that they've studied that happens. When people get tunnel vision, we do everything we can to expand that as much as possible and be very cognizant. But that's the problem with repetitive names, is that it happens.
Not only that, but on the 911 side, if, God forbid, you're unconscious, but a family member or a relative or a visitor is at your house and they're calling 911 for you, when we go to clarify, okay, is that Bayshore? Is that Bay Ridge? If somebody's under pressure and they're dealing with a lot of stress, they'll say yes to anything. Or is that Great Bay Drive? Yeah, even though it's Great Bay Road or Great Bay Drive East or Great Bay Drive West. Same thing for all these Bayshore, Bay Ridge, Bayview. When we're talking about these particular road names, we can't even keep them straight. So imagine if your loved one is the one experiencing an emergency, or somebody is breaking into your home. Unfortunately, sometimes those road names don't always come across clearly from the caller themselves.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation.
We do order the signs as soon as this is approved. So, and our sign installer is ready. So they go up the day that it takes effect.
Okay, so are there any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, Judy Allen. I just want to thank you for answering the questions. It was a collective effort from everybody. I get it. I think we all get what you're saying. Our hearts go out to it, like how you just described you're dealing with this, you're trying to figure out, and I wouldn't want your job for $1 million. Okay, but after reading some of these, I still have issues with the way 911 dispatch, and so perhaps this is not the forum, for that. But I just want it to be said that I think that it may not solve the problem you hope to solve. I think there are still issues with 911. I think, I got a lot more clarity and understanding on how 911, there is nobody sitting in Greenland, answering 911 calls, okay? So if it's coming from Laconia or Concord, whatever, okay, and then it gets dispatched to your locale,
to Rockingham
County, and then they go and they have to, dispatch it to Greenland. All that takes a lot of time. And when Bob Mayer sat here at the last meeting and said he rang, and it rang 15 to 20 times before 911 picked up, that's a problem, because he was in the queue, you know, of calls waiting to be answered. So there are problems with the dispatch that are going to need to be addressed.
Well, typically, when it's a normal, typical day, calls don't go into queue unless there's nobody available. So I don't want to speak to exactly what he experienced, and I did offer to give him my contact info so we could try and get to the root of the problem. But I remember the first month that I worked during a snowstorm. It was the ice storm of '08. We had almost 300 calls in queue because everybody's calling. The roads are slippery. There's snow on the roads. Does anybody know that the roads are icy? Where's DOT? And unfortunately, the people that are experiencing those medical emergencies that need that help right now are going into that queue. And we couldn't get people in on overtime fast enough. We had people coming in the middle of the night, still in their PJs. Unfortunately, we can't plan for every significant disaster or incident, but we do the best we can. Typically, we don't have those call waiting issues. And the standard is for calls to be transferred to local dispatch within 30 seconds of receiving that call. At that point, we've got the location of the emergency, the nature of the emergency, the phone number for the person, just in case we get disconnected, and then it's off to local dispatch. It's not usually a very time-consuming process, and as far as medical calls go, it's a 45 to 90-second window before that ambulance has been requested. During that time, we're getting patient info because responders want to know, how old are they? Are they conscious? Are they breathing? If it's a heart attack or whatever, we're getting that general complaint and then assessing the situation. Depending on what type of call it is and the nature of the medical emergency, it could take a few more seconds so that we can gather pertinent information so that local knows whether to send ALS or, just medics. It seems time-consuming and unnecessary, but all of these things have a reason. There's a reason for these things, and so we're not sending the wrong information or providing the wrong medical care to whomever's on the end of that line.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to take it a little personal here. I had a tragedy at my home, and the only thing I could get out of my mouth was 4 Bay Shore Drive. Get here now. I think I said once what I was experiencing. I could not repeat it no matter how many times they were trying to qualify what I was saying. I think, and I'm not alone, I've talked to other people. The only thing I could get out was 4 Bay Shore Drive. I had to say it 6 or 10 times because the questions kept being asked me, and I couldn't. All I knew was I had to hang up and have someone else call 911. So my point was, had somebody said to me, okay, 4 Bay Shore Drive, I got it, I would have gone from here to here, 4 Bay Shore Drive, I got it, I'm sending someone now. Now can you answer some of my questions or whatever? And I would have said, nope, gotta go, whatever, I'm just, so these are more questions, these are more issues for 911 rather than here, and I get that.
And I understand
so maybe
that.
Right.
You and I can
But I'm not the only one, is what I'm saying. A lot of the townspeople that I've talked to have had issues, one kind or another, whether it's Bob Mayer's or mine or someone else's. Again, my point is, go ahead, let's change the names and hope that really makes a difference. I still think there's a problem and we need to figure it out.
And I don't disagree with you. Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. But if we can unsnaggle one part of that line, then at least it helps, and that's what we're trying to do. If we can take that one snare out of that line, granted there are going to be other ones, but at least that helps the situation. So that being said, go ahead.
Pete Kenner, 25 Bay Shore Drive. I think over these last 2 meetings, some examples the chief gave us, there seem to be issues. If we change the street names, that covers one of the things. But the other 2 issues that were raised, one has been the communication of whether it's 911 or Rockingham, and the third one was training. There was mentioned at the last meeting that there were members of the police department that had been here for 18 years and didn't know where all the streets were. So it seems like that maybe I don't know whether your board or whoever, maybe you guys have a liaison or somebody ought to be investigating these other two issues too and see if we can tighten up the communication issue and the training issue in the fire department and the police department, because those appear to be the other two issues that we're trying to deal with. So if we're gonna do one, let's try to do them all, and we'll maybe have a better system overall.
Okay, to answer your question about the police being trained, our police and fire departments are trained. They do know the streets and this road. One of the problems we have is we also have mutual aid. We get police departments and fire departments from around surrounding towns. If our police department is on handling one problem, we may have to call Stratham in or something else. But all of our police officers are trained as to where all the roads are. Before they can get out in a cruiser by themselves, I believe they go out with other people.
Well, that wasn't what was said at the last meeting. The last meeting, that was not what was said. And
Well,
there was also some indication that people that drive the fire also are new and don't have the. So I'm just taking that from the conversation. I don't know this, right? I'm not saying.
Well, we have both our fire chief and our police chief here, and they can tell you the training these people go through. So, and I am the liaison to the police department and fire department, and I know the training that they go through, and they go through an in-depth training. So, you go out to any of our police officers or fire personnel, they know where these roads are. It's the surrounding town. It's also communications, Bay Shore, Bayview. That can get mixed up. There's a human factor involved in all of these transmissions. And granted, there's improvements still to be made. But as I said, if we can just take one snag out of the line, then that will make things go smoother and improve safety. So that being said, if I could, I'd like to move on to the name changes. And I think what I'd like to do is hold off on making motions until everybody has submitted their names, and then we can make motions on doing the name changes. And
I think we have them.
We already have one.
And what?
We already have one.
Okay. So,
I just have a question before we do that. On Serenity Cove what? Road, drive, terrace, whatever? I don't think we want to name it Serenity Cove.
I think Cove is an acceptable street extension, but she can
I
check.
will double check that, but I'm fairly certain that there is a USPS approved abbreviation for that, even if it is just the word Cove. CV?
Well, I read the list and they have like path and they have everything else that's accepted. Yeah.
I just want to be sure before we do it.
I didn't know what.
I didn't know what
we were talking about.
So,
all right, I'm
Could you
going to ask
share the
you for any other comments?
Just so Tina and the others understand, what we have in front of us is a listing that for the majority of you, Bay Shore Drive would become Shore Drive. We'll have comments about numbering. And then two small areas, one that is currently Fairview Terrace would become Swan Terrace. That was the request of the 3 people who live there. And then what is now Bayview Terrace would become Serenity Cove, and that was the request of the 3 people who live there. And I just want to be sure that Cove is acceptable. Okay.
Okay.
It is CV.
Okay, then Cove is fine. Okay.
All right, any other comments?
I just want to clarify, are our numbers staying the same?
That's what we're about to find out.
Yeah.
That will be our discussion.
All right, yeah.
Because the other two.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask for comments from the board.
Okay, I will start. Based upon the request of the majority of the residents, I'm happy to go forward and approve Shore Drive, Swan Terrace, and Serenity Cove. My own personal feeling is the numbers should not change. for the reasons that Chip had stated, which are that this is a completely stable, built-out subdivision, relatively small. And under our current zoning and also the environmental conditions there just are not going to be additional homes. So I just don't think we need to change numbers.
Okay. If I could, I'd like to get some comments from the 9/11 committee
Sure.
as far as the numbering goes.
I would certainly recommend changing the numbering if you're going to be changing the street name to go along with the standardization. I know that's not a popular choice. Unfortunately, that's the recommendation that my office has. If you're going to change the name, you should do the numbering now. That way it doesn't become a problem down the road if potentially zoning laws change.
Okay.
I would like to point out that on Fairview Terrace, there are odd and even numbers on the same side of the road, so maybe you would want to consider that in your decision making, or at least eliminate the odd on the even side of the road.
Okay. I'm going to, for one, stand behind the 9/11, our committee here, because that's what we put them together for, and that's what they've been working on. But I am, and especially when it comes to the numbering on the different sides of the road. I think that should be standardized. That's my opinion. Go ahead.
Well, I concur with Paul. Leave the numbers the same, but I would like to just check on this, what's presently Fairview Terrace. Could you show me what the number problem is?
So typically in Greenland, even numbers are on the right-hand side, odds are on the left. In this, the line direction continues around this hairpin loop, and it goes from being even numbers to odd numbers, and they are out of sequence. So if you're traveling, along the, I guess, the beginning of the road, because there's two ended up over there, then you would be encountering numbers out of order and odds and evens on the In this scenario, we've changed them all to be evens to match with the rest of town as it generally is, with evens on the right, and at 50-foot increments.
Is anybody here from Fairview?
I see that even is on the right and the odds on the left there.
That road,
If you're driving it.
you're driving
And
it,
you look to the right for each of the houses, so they're
And-
all on the right.
and there's land.
Not if you go on the second horseshoe.
Now if you come around, yeah, I see what you're
Right.
saying.
Depends which side you start.
It isn't just open road here, there's
Yes, yes it
there's
is.
partition there.
You go in both sides.
There's a median. Yeah.
So if you go in the other end, it would be on the left. That's an interesting way to do it.
But do people go in on the,
Sure.
everybody comes in on the right? Thank you. I mean, I don't know, just. Well, yeah, that's right.
But they can't.
Probably they can't.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna ask for a, Ron? I'm gonna ask for, yeah, go ahead.
First of all, no matter what your house numbers end up being tonight, if we can't see them on a rainy day from the road, we ain't gonna find you if you're laying on the floor. So when you go back and think about it, that's where we gotta find you. I guarantee you, if there's smoke and fire coming out your windows, I'll find you. I've never messed up on that, but sometimes finding a home, dark, rainy night, it is tough. Especially, I think you guys got a couple gang mailboxes out there.
Yeah, we got like 4 in ours. You're never gonna find 17 if you're looking.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things, whatever we decide tonight, if you number your houses better, it'd be great. The other thing I wanted to mention, since you're here, if you have elderly, the fire chief has some, what they call Knox boxes available. They're little safes that either hang on your door or mount on your wall of the house on the outside. The fire department has the key to get inside, so they don't have to break your door in if you fell and broke your leg and can't walk to open the door, which is pretty common for us. We do pretty good breaking in without doing any damage, but sometimes it can't be helped with the newer locks. But that's something, if you're interested, you got somebody that may have a medical condition that may not allow them to get to the door, you may want to have one of those put on your building.
But who's to say, Chip, with my circle, I'm on 17, I've got the circle. Even if you change the numbers from Judge Weaver's house to the house across the street to 3 or 4, if you can change the numbers, the mailbox is still gonna be on my side of the street, on my side of the circle.
The numbers to me aren't a problem in this particular development.
Okay, there you go. You agree.
They aren't to me. I'm saying, get your number out of the driveway so we can find you in the building, right? And it's mainly the medical stuff is what I.
Most of the mailboxes are marked pretty clearly, and the homes, but.
Yeah, as I said, try looking at it on a rainy day inside a vehicle and see how easy it is to find it.
Yeah, well, the street lighting situation is not great.
Those are the only two comments I got. We ready to rock and roll on this?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move, we rename Bay Shore Drive to Shore Drive, rename Fairway Drive to Swan Terrace. Fairway Drive to.
Fairway.
I'm sorry.
Fairway's next.
That is one of the confusing ones we had. In the old days, they used to get the person's name. I didn't pay attention to the address. I knew where they lived. But Fairview Drive to Swan Terrace.
I like Paul's motion.
Rename Bayview Drive to Serenity Cove.
Well, apparently.
Apparently it's typed wrong.
This is how this happened.
That's what's getting me, okay.
It's not our fault.
And not renumber, and not to renumber as recommended by 911 committee, effective January 3rd, 2018.
Okay, and I'll second that to get to a discussion.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, just so you know, I'm going to stick with my 9/11 committee. I'm going to be a little hard-nosed about it, but again, to me, safety trumps everything, and I shouldn't be using that word. Safety overshadows everything. So I'm for the motion except for the change of the numbers. All right, I've got a motion and a second. No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I have a question about if we have licenses that are due, passports that are due like in the next couple of months, what do we do about addresses?
No, go ahead and put in the change back.
Put in the change of address for a new license?
Are we not getting numbers on that?
Is that right?
Yeah, we had people start that process ahead of time,
Okay,
and they didn't have a problem.
okay.
If it's too soon, then the DMV may not approve it because that road name won't exist in the state system until the date of the effective.
But if they put in just a change of address form,
I have had issues with the DMV approving change of address forms prior to the effective date, so.
You said.
Yeah, because it
You
has
have
to
a
be
packet?
There'll be a package sent out.
yep, oh yeah, with forms,
Okay.
copies of letters
This
saying
is
this
not-
address has changed, and you can send it to all your
But soon, not, that's coming up before January, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your cooperation, your consideration, and your patience. I know it's difficult, and you've been very nice.
Same ID, the same residence right now. I give it a change.
Thank you.
They'll send you a sticker.
Yeah.
Right now. Until they change it again.
All right, as an aside for the rest of the board, I did look up the
Whatever works for you.
We are not required to ask.
Take your car on a rainy day, look, I think it's a good idea. I didn't want to do it.
We are required to have one hearing about number change.
No, number 10.
You have one hearing. All right, does anybody have anything else to bring up?
No,
I'm so glad. I have to.
I've also suggested that they come to the planning board, because there will be issues that we discussed at the planning board. Breakfast for, as well as sea rise and about 18 other things. So there's a lot of work for the planning board that will be coming forward as potential ordinance.
All right.
Thank you.
All righty, you're welcome. Okay, and I want to get a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
At 8:45. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
7:45.
Up to 7:45.
All right.
Oh, and